Dan Barnes, Postmedia, joining us now to talk about all of this chatter between the XFL and CFL. Potential chatter nonetheless. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
It always excites me when we have guests booked and then I see all these wonderful articles being posted and shared about, the delay of the season. Not that that's good that they're delaying, but it does make me glad when I see all this and I go, Dan, I'm really glad that we got you scheduled for this week. And you said it's good timing. So I'd rather be lucky than good. So I think we're on a good track here.
I think you have to be good to be lucky. Isn't that the old saw?
Yes. So first off, what thoughts? How are you doing today? I mean, this will air tomorrow, but we're on Thursday, April 22nd. We just announced the CFL delay to August 5th. How are you grappling with everything?
Well, I think it's having followed the league for 30 years and then covered it for on and off for 25. This has been a difficult time for the league and its fans, especially because the fans have been largely kept in the dark. The CFL wasn't doing a good job at telling them what's going on, in part because it kept changing and they were at the mercy of COVID. So they didn't want to appear weak, I think. So better than say something weak, they didn't say much at all, which was unfortunate. But this announcement, though it's bad news in terms of cutting 4 games off the schedule, it's good news in that they're actually going to play the game. They're fully committed, and if it's not 14 games, it'll be 12 or 10. I don't know how much lower than 10 they would be willing to go. Obviously, last year they were going to play 6 in a bubble in Winnipeg. I think I know the bubble's off the table at this point. So they're geared at 14. All kinds of things have to happen, though, right? The COVID landscape has to flatten, especially in Ontario, where they have so many teams and so many cases. That's definitely a problem. Alberta, where I live, also not good. BC's dealing with the variants, not good. So I think they kicked the can far enough down the road to give themselves a fighting chance at 14 games. The players, though they would have loved 18, they're on board with 14, and they're going to do whatever they can to make it happen, short of taking a massive salary haircut because they feel they've done that already. And when you look at the renegotiated salaries this year, they have indeed done that. Guys who were playing 2 years ago for $1.25 are suddenly down to 95 or 100. And it's, convincing those guys to take another slice off the top, that'll be tough. Getting significant numbers of fans into all these stadiums will be tough. Like, what's significant? Is it 50%? By the end of the year, Wade Miller of the Blue Bombers said he wants 100%. I think that's seriously pie in the sky, but who knows? So a lot of good things have to happen, but simply getting the announcement out, letting the fans in on something was a good move. So if there's more to follow, great. That represents progress.
Is it a situation where CFL's looking at the vaccinations and looking at the case count in hospitals, but also looking to what the NHL is doing to allow fans back in as well?
Well, yeah, they've made no secret of the fact that they have incorporated return to play protocols, health and safety protocols from the leagues that are in business again. So they've done that. Obviously, the NHL plays indoors, CFL plays outdoors, and hope that plays to their advantage, right? But I don't know if it does. The BC Lions, who can play kind of indoor-outdoor in their BC Place Stadium, they're looking at only 5,000 fans to start, right? So you could make a joke about their attendance off the top, if you like, but they're looking at 5,000 to start, maybe 10,000 at some point. As I said, the Blue Bombers are looking at 30,000 plus at the end of their season. Good luck on that, but it'd be great. Obviously, it'd be great to see. Are they copying the NHL? Yeah, to a large degree they are. They've learned some lessons from them, but that only goes so far because the NHL is bankrolled by a serious TV deal, right? They can test their players way more often than the CFL could possibly afford. And that's just for starters.
Yeah, that's a big concern for me as well, and just knowing the tremendous amount of money and everything that's being spent, in the NFL and these other leagues and testing. We had early, we're gonna do the bulk of our show here once we get done with these. In your article, in the Toronto Sun, you had said that Randy Ambrosie had said he had not asked the XFL for any funding help with this, that he wanted a made in Canada solution for this, and that he hadn't asked XFL or Redbird or whatever. What is your take on that?
I believe that. I mean, can't call him a liar. If he says they haven't asked the XFL ownership for funding for the 2021 season, then that's probably the case. It doesn't mean that they're not talking about a financial arrangement down the road, right? If whatever comes of this chatter, this incessant chatter that they're having, and it's mostly around business. It's not about rules, I don't believe. Not at this point. I think they have to go way bigger picture in terms of what a business arrangement could do for both leagues, right? I think you have to have that off the top. If you don't get an understanding of where this is going and what kind of revenue it drives, why would you bother talking about the Rouge, right? I mean, that's crazy. So look big picture and drill down from there. So have they talked about money in the future? I believe they have. They must have. Either that or they're just wasting their time. But has the CFL asked the XFL for money to run their 2021 season? I don't believe they have. They have talked to the federal government. They have talked to their sponsors about coming up with, upfront payments. They have talked to TSN about what TSN can help them with. They've certainly, asked the players for accommodations on salaries and other things. So they are looking to maximize whatever revenue they can, but I don't believe that includes the XFL at this point.
Do you think that with asking for player cuts and going to the government, do you think they should have thought about asking? I mean, should that have been on the table to ask Redbird and the XFL to help subsidize that?
No, I don't think so, because what are they getting into? What is the XFL buying for? Call it $30 million, because $30 million is what the CFL was hoping to get in an interest-free loan from the federal government last year to run their bubble. So call it that. What does Redbird get for its $30 million? A piece of what? A piece of a league that's going to lose a lot of money this year, whether it plays or not, right? So that's a crazy investment. Those guys are way smarter than that. If the CFL could not possibly offer them anything of value for their money in 2021. It doesn't make sense to me. Why would you bother? So down the road, I mean, if you want to think of it as a good faith gesture, this is business, right? This isn't friends. It's not here. I'll give you $30 million and we can talk about it in 2 years. Nope, doesn't work that way.
I completely agree. There was a lot of chatter online when this whole thing started going, and a lot of CFL fans were just like, well, Redbird's just going to come in and give us money. I'm like, they're going to want something on their return on investment. That's the way it works. They're not fools. They're not just going to give you, a blank check and go, here, nothing in return. It's all yours. Just have it.
No, that's crazy. And when they start talking about what the two leagues for, the XFL is what it is. It's a bunch of assets right now. It's not even a league at this point. So what they have together is better, right? They scale. So they scale up to pick a number. Is it 17 teams? If it's, if they go beyond that, if they suddenly have some power to spread the footprint around North America, then you talk about streaming deals. Then you talk about traditional broadcast deals. You talk about, gambling revenue. You talk about all kinds of things. But right now they can't talk about any of that because they have nothing to sell. So why would Redbird just essentially flush millions down the toilet by bailing out a league they're not even in business with yet?
They wouldn't.
I wanted to ask you, and I was talking with Farhan about this last night too, and part of your article was talking about player pay cuts, obviously a reduced schedule, 14-game season, and I know that the players are paid, per game. Any chance of any of that being figured out to make them whole at that point, for the games that they're not going to be playing? I mean, I know that it's you're asking the players to take the time off work now, potentially even later. I mean, what are your thoughts on that and kind of helping the players out?
Well, helping the players out. That's, again, this is business.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't, hey, let's get together on this, and it's going to be contentious. It has to be contentious because the CFL is trying to scrape every nickel at this point. They, according to many reports, the 9 teams lost as much as, 60 or 80 million Canadian, right? So they're going to lose some more money. They don't want to, they want to minimize that. So they will ask their stakeholder partners for as much as they can get. Now, the players, they've already given. They've given at the office, man. It's been a tough go for those guys, some of whom have not been paid since October or November of 2019, right? They got some federal government money that was passed through the teams, like any other employee in Canada was eligible to receive. But in terms of football money, no, it's not flowing. So, and the guys who restructured, we like to call it restructured contracts. Well, they renegotiated down, right? So why would they be willing to go another 20%? I don't believe that's even close to on the table at this point. It was floated. The players pushed back. I don't believe the PA leadership even took it to the membership because it was a pretty offensive offer for them. So they will have to come to some agreement on several issues that are contained in the collective bargaining agreement. That's certainly one of them. They did a lot of that hard work for the bubble because they basically came to an agreement over the bubble. So they had reached that, but whether that translates from 6 games to 14 games, mathematically, no idea.
You had a story that was reposted through 3 Down Nation that claimed at least 2 owners believe they can survive another year without playing.
Yeah, they believe they can. They believe that because this was the camp that is committed to playing, but not committed to playing at all costs, right? So they want to protect the value of their franchises. And if they take on too much debt through playing in empty stadiums, this is when, right, this is what you saw yesterday came out of those talks. The proviso for playing on August 5th is health and safety and a significant number of fans in the stands in every stadium. That is a nod to the owners who want to play, but not at any cost. And the cost of an empty stadium for these guys, some of them, is just too great. I don't know why that's a big shock to anybody.
It's not, and it's, there are groups like MLSE that, could afford, in theory could afford to play games in an empty stadium, but do they really want to lose money? Everything they own makes a lot of money. And this is the one thing that they own that doesn't make money. So when you think about some owners that need those fans in the crowd to actually pay the bills, and then there's an MLSE, it seems like there's way more than 2 teams that can't afford either from, being completely in the red or, having one of their products bleed out. There has to be fans in the stands.
Absolutely. And what's interesting to me is that the teams with really low attendance, so you look at the 3 major markets with low attendance, I believe they lost less money by not playing in 2020 than they did by playing in 2019. Because you throw in the player cost, the cost of a training camp, which is like $500,000 in some cases, cost of all the travel, right? So suddenly you've got all these costs that are not backstopped by large crowds. So you take all that off the table, you take the crowds off the table, but you take all those other expenses off the table, and they actually lost less, I believe. So you got that going on. That's a weird dynamic in the larger picture of the 9-team league, right? Because that's very specific to 3 places. So if that's the case, and I've been told that's the case, then you've got people with vastly different interior business models that might be at odds with the larger group. So there you go.
It seems like there's, the news came out, a lot of optimism, obviously, right? CFL, we just talked with AJ. He wants everyone wants the season, right? You strike me as maybe a little bit more of a realist, just down the line. Do you think there's too many loopholes in this? Like, well, we got to have significant numbers. We got to have this. We got are they hedging too much, or do you feel confident about this August 5th and what happens if we don't hit significant fans, or we can't go west to play games, or we can't do all these other things that they talk about?
Right. It's all business. So as a fan, everybody says, yeah, we got to have football. As a business owner that is thinking not only about this year, but next year and then a year after that, and, a legacy of football, not just this year, you have to be more realistic. The only way they can play is with fans. So if COVID suddenly goes through the roof in June and July, and they can't play on August 5th, they have contingencies for pushing the season back and reducing the number of games. I don't know specifically what those dates are and what those numbers are, but that's true, right? Ambrosi said yesterday they have backup plans for backup plans. Well, it only makes sense that they have contingencies for fewer games than 14. Now, I mean, if that doesn't happen and the choice is go broke by playing in empty stadiums or don't play, it'll come down to a vote of governors again, and it'll be close. And it certainly could go either way. But if enough teams don't want to play knowing that they're going to just drown in red ink with empty stadiums, how do you convince those guys to go ahead? Can't.
No way.
What do you want to see come from the CFL-XFL talks?
I don't have any skin in the game. I don't know that I want to see anything. The two leagues will, if they decide that they can expand their global footprint, if they can drive revenues that the CFL could not normally find, right? The CFL is almost maxed out, and people will criticize them for not doing enough marketing. Well, good luck. So if this dalliance with the XFL turns into global streaming and US TV deals that strengthen the business model of the CFL, and great. It's not that I want to see anything, but I believe the CFL is going to outlive me and my kids and their kids. It's the cockroach. The people have been trying to kill the CFL since I think I first covered in 1986, and then 87 when the Montreal Alouettes folded, 2 or 3 days before the season. Everybody was saying that's it. There's going to be, who's the next franchise to go? How can they possibly outlive this? That's a lot of years ago. And, they had their expansion into the U.S. that whatever. I mean, it didn't look good, but it set them up financially for a little while. Right, for a little bit of a run. If, whatever happens, call it a merger if you like. If they wind up with a merger that includes 8 XFL teams and suddenly that just goes south, I don't think the CFL just folds up its tent and we never hear from it again. I think it outlives us again. I think it comes back, right? I don't believe that the CFL can exist without Toronto. I mean, for sure, it can't exist without Toronto, because that drives the national buy, right? And if you don't have national ad buys, you don't have a league. If you don't have a national TV deal, you don't have a league. If you don't have Toronto, you don't have a CFL. I've seen people suggest otherwise. I think it's crazy. But I don't think the CFL lives and dies on whatever happens with the XFL.
I think that's interesting. Because we're not, we're the XFL Markcast, but we try to be objective. We try to be, where I've seen that where they say, well, yeah, let's say the XFL thing doesn't work out and then the CFL just continues, right? That it isn't necessarily the selling our soul. I have seen that floated. The question that I'm curious personally, and I asked AJ this too, or we asked AJ this, how do you approach this season with still these talks going on in the background, right? To me, it's like Game of Thrones, winter is coming, right? Like we don't know what this is, but yet we're still covering this league that's happening. How are you grappling with that as someone that covers this professionally?
Well, there's not a lot of news coming out about this XFL talks, first of all, right? You can't get it. Like I can't get an interview with Danny Garcia. I can't get an interview with Redbird Capital, and I've tried a couple of their people. You certainly can't get anything out of The Rock unless he's posting it on Instagram. And the news that you get from Randy Ambrosie and others on the XFL is pretty vague. So until there's meat on that bone, right, or somebody wants to tell you what's going on, it's going to exist, and we all know it's happening. We all know they're talking to one another. So it'll exist in the background. And now that they've put an August 5th start date on this, there's not a ton of work to be done on the CFL beat at this point, right? There'll be a couple of follow stories here and there about announcement, and there'll be some stuff about vaccination hopes and blah, blah, blah. And, what players feel about this and whether they're going to quit their day job, and they shouldn't, obviously, not yet. Don't be doing that. So in terms of distraction, there isn't any, right? I don't believe it's a distraction because there's nothing else going on at this point. August 5th is a long way away. And, if training camp starts, as they say, on July 9th or 10th, I've seen both. That'll be great. It'll be nice to cover some actual football. However we do it, whether we're allowed to attend practice or not, who knows at this point. But no, I think it's quite easy. You can in fact chew bubblegum and walk at the same time. And so we'll let them do that.
Sounds good. Dan Barnes, thank you for your time. We appreciate you jumping on here on the Markcast, and we'll be in touch soon. Hopefully we get some good news about this 2021 CFL season.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for having me on.
And when you get that interview with Dwayne, you have this on the Zoom call. We'll do the same for you. I promise. Yeah. We'll do the same.
Deal.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, insights, and expertise.
You bet. Thanks, guys. Yeah.